Greetings, space fans. I'm Mark Marquette, and I welcome you to the American Space Museum in our video podcast, Stay Curious. Today, we're going to talk about some of the legacy space plane concepts from 60 or more years ago. And we enjoy looking back at the past occasionally on our show. But if you're new, we always talk about the shuttle era is sort of our wheelhouse, and we are going to look back at how that all started. What were some of the concepts that were thought of, and how did they push the envelope from one step to the next to get to the fabulous era of the space shuttle in 1981 to 2011. So everybody grab up a chair here. I'm looking at my co-producer, Marty Winkle.
Get closer to the mic.
Get closer to the mic, he says there. Gee, you haven't told me that many times. And there, but let me reposition the mic there as he gets the volume on me, and we have some of you coming on in there. And let me push the live button there on my Stay Curious tab there. And so I can welcome you all here. And I know that we're going to, Marty, I talked to, there we are right there. All right. Talked to Doug Forrest. Driving back from a meeting, and everything's okay with Doug. He's out in Pasadena, California area. He did stay at home yesterday because of the fire alert with he and his wife Yoshiko, and just wanted Doug Forrest, who's a wonderful artist and works out in the industry out there in the LA area, that we're thinking of him and this horrible fire that's going on at the West Coast. So that said, hi, Dave Stingy. Hey, Bill Whiting. And he's looking forward to today's show. Steve Jokums, thank you for watching today. And to set it up again, the shuttle era has changed our world like nobody really realizes. Right now, 24 years have happened that the International Space Station has been continuously occupied, have 7 astronauts on that right now orbiting the Earth. Saw it last night going overhead, and there's another opportunity tonight, Marty. For you along the fruited plain on the East Coast, you might see the space station go over. That was built by the shuttle. That's why the shuttle is so important, its legacy. Without it, we would have never built the International Space Station. So Colin Buckley's saying hello from Ireland. Loves the content. We're letting a few of you come on here before we get wound up in the content. Dean Babcock, another faithful watcher, Stay Curious. You'll see what Dean looks like tomorrow as we show us something that he's been up to that he sent me. And hello, Cliffy on Pomona, Australia shores there at the surfing area that's real popular. And there has been summertime down there in Australia. And I can't wait to have my Friday brekkie. Okay, Cliffy, this has been a long, long week. This is a week. Some weeks go by and you're like, wow, it's Friday already. And about Tuesday, I was saying, is it Friday yet, Marty? But a lot of great things happening here at the American Space Museum. Gabriel Rothblatt, our executive director, and myself, the director, are entering our 3rd month at the helm. And thanks to you all support, things are going to be just fine as we get our programs launched off in our 1st quarter. And come back to us tomorrow and we'll talk more about the business of the American Space Museum and what we're doing the next 3 months. But today we want to talk about some of the legacy vehicles that were the precursors to the space station, and of course precursors to the space shuttle here shown in orbit. That's Challenger, and one of the beautiful images of its 10 flights up there, iconic image there. But how did all this happen? How did the concept come about? Why does everybody's space planes look like a triangular shape? Now, the winged part of it was so it could be in the Earth's atmosphere and be maneuvered. So we went away from a ballistic spacecraft there. But without notes, I'm doing this show, so I don't have a whole lot of details of years and exact names of the vehicles you're looking at. Some I do, but I do this off the top of my head. And those of you can chime in to correct me if I ask what something about I don't know. Carlton Bailey's saying hi. We're all kind of happy that they pushed back the New Glen until Saturday night, Sunday morning at 1 o'clock. Maybe it'll be a little warmer at that time. And good afternoon, Tom Usiak. You're going to enjoy this, my friend, from Lancaster, Pennsylvania. One of the first concepts was used for military, of course, as all of the early space planes had a military bend to them. They were America's were concepts were funded by the Air Force. They were thinking about the protection of the Earth and the orbit around the Earth being the high ground. So this is a Sanger. Sanger is one of the early versions out there. Of course, you know the V2 bomb rocket that the Germans used. But here's your, and they were going to have this slide on a rail to get it up into space, so to speak. And but as I note these archival imagery here, note the words on there: fuel tanks, pressurized cabin, fuel tanks, bomb retracted landing gear. Is that what that says, Marty? Let me make that smaller there. Loading gear. Yep. Bomb retracted landing gear. All right. So you see the word bomb right away involved with all of these images they're talking about. Here's another concept of basically putting wings on a missile and putting people on it. On there, very popular concept there. But it all started with this little rocket, this rocket in which is I think that looks like a Juno rocket to me. It's not at the very top, and I'm going to make it smaller here. You see at the very top is what looks like a mini shuttle. All right, and that's this vehicle here called Asset. All right, and there's Asset, ASSETT. It was, and I don't have the acronym. That's something I should have wrote down. But it's all about a test on aerodynamic structures, and they would shoot a rocket up suborbital with this on the end of it. There was like 8 of them. All but one of them sank in the ocean before they could get to them. And they had different ablative materials, other materials on here. Here's where you get what we put on the Mercury and Gemini spacecraft outside of them, those shingles whose name escapes me. It begins with an R, so Steve Jokums helped me with that. Like he did, that is the Thor missile. That's right. It's not the Juno. It was the Thor missile that this is right here. Go back. Image. Go back. Yep. That's the cool Thor rocket there. Look at it up on top there. No aeroshell around it or anything. It went suborbital, went out, and they were going to try to retrieve them, but they didn't. And one of these sits, Marty, outside the merchandise gift shop at the Sands Space History Museum of the U.S. Space Force at Cape Canaveral there. Then they segued into, after learning ablative materials and so forth that they could use, the Dyna-Soar. And of course, in the 60s, dinosaurs were very popular that roved the Earth. The concepts of them and discoveries are being made all the time in the 50s and 60s, and scientific instruments could date them and so forth. Well, they named this Dyna-Soar, S-O-A-R. And this was going to be the single-seater, maybe a two-seater space plane. All right. Think of the T-38 that the astronauts use as their own taxis and make them space-worthy. And you've got a concept that Air Force wanted was have a fleet of dinosaurs that had a crew member on them for instant access to anywhere in the world. Okay. And they were going to launch them on a Titan rocket with the Titan II rocket with the hypergolic fuels. And this Titan II rocket looks familiar because, yes, that's what was used on the Gemini spacecraft to launch 10 missions there of 2-man. So you got the Dyna-Soar on top. Again, it's got wings. It's got aerodynamic surfaces on it. It's got to go through the Earth's atmosphere, which it does within about, it goes through that first 20 miles in about 2 minutes or less. Not sure you need those aerodynamic fins like that on there, but maybe you do to get to the upper atmosphere. But then it would get it up to the 20-mile or further up there, because 100 miles or so is where you need to go to orbit the Earth. So different configurations of this. We've had a show or two about the Dyna-Soar, where the second stage rocket boosts it up, and but they also could have been a suborbital type of vehicle where we launch 3 or 4 of them at the same time, and they had the capability as gliders to land. All right, there were developing some that did have their own engines on them, but there's the Dyna-Soar concept of the U.S. Air Force. The great Wernher von Braun, the great dreamer, and if he didn't, where would we be? This was his concept of a 2-stage, multiple crewed vehicle that the bottom would come back and the top with the wings would go to space and come back. And these concepts were quite popular and promoted on Walt Disney's Wonderful World of Walt Disney on Sunday nights. As a baby boomer, I grew up, couldn't wait to see that at 8 o'clock. And then Ed Sullivan show it. I know 7 o'clock was Disney's Wonderful World, and they would have everything from the Pinocchio movie to Wernher von Braun was very popular and changed a lot of people's minds by talking about going to the moon. And Walt Disney would be there talking to him about it, and a lot of these concepts came about right on Sunday evening in front of the TV. That in those days was a piece of furniture. Remember that, Marty? Every TV had 4 legs on it. Then sometimes they had a stereo in it with AM, FM radio and a turntable. And those were the good old days, right, buddy?
Yeah, and also had rabbit ear antennas.
Rabbit ears and antennas, exactly there. So why do I have a picture of President Nixon and James Fletcher, the only 2-time NASA administrator? Nixon proposed after this Apollo era that he rode the coattails of, President Kennedy, of course. So all the moon landings happened under his presidency, and he wanted to make NASA a commercial agency by putting satellites in space and charging for them. So hence the Space Shuttle concept came about. And there's Fletcher with Nixon in January of 1972, talking about to the world for the first time the concept of the space transportation system. And that is some of the concepts here that were touted about. All right. Once an orbiter got up there, the Space Shuttle, it was called, would take crews up, deploy propellant modules, which we've never done that. Propellant modules to fuel other spacecraft and satellites. Satellite repair, we could check that off. Space station logistics and cargo support, absolutely. That's building the International Space Station. Deployment of a tug. Marty, like a tugboat, right? That would go out there. Of course, you had the IUS, inertial upper stage, and you also had the PAM, that were second stages that would boost a satellite once it got out of the shuttle bay. But I don't think we've ever put a cargo tug up there. But that's what we need to put up there to keep the space station alive for 100 years, so people can see it in orbit instead of dreaming about it being at the bottom of the Indian Ocean, if that's what its fate is. Planetary probe launching. Check that off 5 or 6 times by the Space Shuttle. So these concepts were thought about and some were executed. But the concept of what it looked like was a vision that artists really enjoyed. I don't know this artist here, but it's very similar to our backdrop here. That is a Robert McCall, the very famous Robert McCall space artist. That was his wheelhouse. Look at this beautiful rendition of a first stage rocket with a orbiter on it. All right. And this is a very popular concept of having a space plane, not one, but two of them. I love how the depiction of the VAB in the back and all that is. Robert McCall, his murals are world famous all over space centers, particularly in our country. Well, Sundog 7, thank you, thank you. This asset is aerodynamic, elastic, structural system environmental test. Aerothermodynamic structural systems environment test is asset. And that's a mouthful right there. That's why we have acronyms. So thank you, Sundog 7. And thank you for joining our family here on Stay Curious. And there's one of our family members, Doug Forrest. Hello, all. And we did tell everybody you're okay in Pasadena, California area there with Yoshiko, your lovely wife. So we'll all be thinking about people out there in the fires of Southern California. I love this, Marty. This is sort of cool and reminds me of a couple space planes that we have on display. I'm going to show them here to you in just a second, as we've got another concept there. All right. So look at how huge the cargo ascent to orbit ship is. It would get you up about 20 miles. That's always the breakthrough layer for the first stage when gravity lessens its hold and the space air is so thin up there. But let me show this, an artifact out of our museum that many of you have seen on our shuttle gallery. Okay. Couple concepts there, and the one in the center there looks exactly like what we're talking about. And I'm gonna, because this is easy to do and not hurt the integrity of our model here, I can take that off and show you the concept. Look at them engines, Marty. 4, 8, 12 engines there to get it up to orbit or close to orbit, and then 2 engines on this to take it to orbit. And yes, they come apart, and I'm not going to do that. The United States of America on both of them. So you would have a crew in this one, though I'll bet it could be autonomous, of course, in today's computer world. But you see the little windows on the front of it there. And then, of course, this would go to space. This would land back at Cape Kennedy and be ready for the next flight to space there. So let me just take a second to properly put this back. And actually, I'll set it down there for right now. So those are models from the 60s. Various companies were competing for this concept, including McDonnell, Grumman, Boeing, all your regulars in there. So, but what another neat piece of art from the 60s of what the concepts were, all right, at that time. And both of these are reusable spacecraft, by the way. I love this one. This is one of my, we used this as a backdrop one time, Marty, but there you go about what I showed you there. And just think of the maintenance, the reusability was, they thought would be so easy. You're looking underneath there at the reentry features on the belly. I really don't see any type of tile under there. The film they show at the Atlantis display at KSC is an interesting history of the shuttle's design. Tom Celentano in Connecticut says, Marty, I've seen it 10 times. You're right. Max Faget throws a little balsa wood model of looks like one of these when a bunch of engineers are called together for a meeting and in a hangar. And yeah, it's very dramatic. The Atlantis is one of the greatest revealed displays you'll ever see. And here's 3 other concepts, all right, to get it right on there. Again, a space plane taking up a orbiter space plane, all right. And where would that space plane land? Well, hopefully back to Kennedy Space Center. Maybe they would hop over to, over to Europe or something and land there and come back. These ideas were well thought out of on the artist table. And eventually, we did have a 2-piece kind of shuttle era, but the CA, the shuttle carrier aircraft, was used to ferry the shuttle back and forth from Downey, California, where it was maintained and refurbished and upgraded, and Kennedy Space Center. Of course, if we had to abort the landing at one of those transoceanic abort landing sites in Europe or North Africa, they would have brought it back on this like that. So has to land for refueling. You know, I always thought about, wow, when I see this picture, Marty, I always thought about what would the Wright brothers think? Okay. What would the Wright brothers think if they could see this from 1903, their first, and then to 1981, you know, 8 years. If they could have lived to see this, what would they have thought about flight? Well, did you know? Of course you don't know. That's why you're staying curious. What's this? Wait a minute. You got to study that a minute there. Yeah, that's a Saturn rocket, or most of it, the S1B part of it. Well, actually, it's more like the first stage, the S1 stage, with a shuttle on it. And it's actually got a tank on there. It's external tanks on the top of that up there. Yes, this was a concept to launch a shuttle like this, and actually investigated for a while. But the true of this came, and hello, Emily Carney, space hipster #1. Emily's holding a model with the Grumman shuttle that they bid on and got outbid by Rockwell, North American, right, Marty?
Wrong. Grumman got the contract, and then Nixon said, no, the contract's going to go to a company in California, and therefore Rockwell got the contract. But they did not outbid Grumman.
Okay, they were given the contract. It was, you're right. I mean, I forgot that they were actually given the contract, but it was a political ploy of Richard Nixon from California, and using his influence as vice president from Eisenhower to take it away from Grumman. But this is the way Grumman wanted to launch it. Now, what's good about this? There's no external tank foam that's going to hit the vehicle and so forth like that. It was going to go to orbit on a Saturn S, hopped up Saturn S1 there. And
Well, that didn't happen during the Eisenhower administration. It happened in the Nixon administration.
yes, and Nixon was vice president of Eisenhower, and he used his political clout from that office to be influenced also that I'm going to do this to Los Angeles. It was sort of like he had the biggest voice, Marty's what I'm saying. Eisenhower administration had nothing to do with the shuttle except some of these early concepts, but Nixon did, and he knew what to do to get it to California and take it away from Grumman. That's what I'm saying. His political expertise as president, another president might not have been able to do that. I think he benefited from being in the White House previously. But yes, a raw deal for Grumman. Look at that concept. This was a model that was sold on our auction, and it was owned by who owned that, Marty? Look up on above my. I got his picture up there, signed by me in a spacesuit. The picture up on the wall up there. That's
Scott McCloud.
who?
Yeah, Scott McCloud.
Scott McCloud. Scotty McCloud was the astronaut for Grumman that was on Walter Cronkite during the moon landing, and he died at age 95. This was his, and amazing model there. And there's another concept of it going off like that. Okay, that somebody put together there. Would that be cool to see? Yeah. Yeah. No, there you did. Thank you, Marty. There, take our banner off of there. I wanted to see that for everybody. If you can. What? Yeah, there you go. Imagine seeing that take off there. So that was a concept of the time there. So that did not happen. So now we're going to look at this, and I forgot to say at the beginning, this reminds me of it. You're going to see some rare blueprints that came through the museum 8 years ago that were sold in an auction that some of them were based on this concept right here. Incredible. All right. So you're going to see some rare blueprints here in a few minutes there. Here's another shuttle concept. Little different contour to the spaceship, deploying a Hubble type satellite there. Maybe that satellite, the small one, is a drone satellite that's photographing this deploy. Or maybe it's 100 miles in the background. Not sure about that. Again, another concept like I showed you that we have on display here with all those engines in the back. These were designed to take off and land, right, on a landing strip. Some of that was some of the concepts was landing like and taking off like a regular liner. Threw this in a wild concept called Constitution. Okay, kind of a catamaran in the sky, if you will. Another Air Force look at how the shuttle was looking, and this is a very, very close proximity of it in the 60s, the way it turned out, with a payload inside there, 4 engines, not 3, and different, just a little bit different configuration, but not much. And here's Nixon looking at a shuttle concept at the time as the program matured. And in June 1972, 6 months after he proposed it, Congress did pass $5.5 billion to build the space transportation system. Here's one of the early concepts from November 1972. Okay, you got point out the orbiter, the solid rocket boosters, and the external tank. Had a little nose pole there on the external tank is seen in a lot of things. The mission profile from the 1960s: launch, separation, jettison, orbit, reentry, and landing, and discover booster recovery concept in there. Okay, and there it shows jettisoning the fuel tank in the top up there. We use this as our Shuttle Fest 1 t-shirt 4 years ago. And a cool schematic of what the shuttle did become. A little more contoured maybe than with those SRBs. Yep, that has a little spike on the front of the external tank there that obviously was eliminated on there. And that beautiful concept right there that I showed you earlier. The Robert McCall iconic image of it. Again, the 4 panels there, and an earlier concept where the parent rocket is soaring back to its landing site while the Dyna-Soar is taking off there, which Steve Jokums pointed out to me. Dynamic soaring was where the exact phrasing was that they used. It wasn't dinosaurs. But the pun on the wordplay there attracted a lot of public attention. Again, another cool concept of it. Not sure if it's coming or going up or coming back there. But kind of looks like that's more of a re-entry type of picture. As you see here, wheels down. We actually had this concept in a big frame picture at one time, Marty. That's Rockwell. You see on the bottom left, 2, 4, 6 engines there. All right. And that could be a cargo shuttle. I don't really see a clear front windshields, which was a concept that NASA had. And again, another beautiful rendering straight out of the NASA's labs, artist work done by NASA to tell people this is what we have in mind to do and how we want to do it. And this is how we did it, all right, in a Mark and Tom Usiak photograph there. And of course, the concepts of building the space station were all widely varied there. Look at the astronauts. It looks like one is uh, traversing between a space station. Yeah, like that might be a rescue situation there. One astronaut sitting up, stand up EVA, and you got a connecting thing there going to the space station in a 1970s concept. And I remember these kind of concepts that we thought that space stations were always going to be circular to create artificial gravity. This one, as you might recognize, is built with the help of the external tank being used up there as one. And of course, this became the true reality of the International Space Station. There's one of the orbiters there on the left, docked to it there in the there. So, and pop culture. The shuttle definitely is part of pop culture. And sorry to any of you if I have to tell you this, but this is the crew of Enterprise with Gene Roddenberry there in the leisure suit, the brown leisure suit. I see Leonard Nimoy beside him, and so on and so forth. There's Fletcher on the far left. This was the rollout of Enterprise that was lobbied by Star Trek fans to be named Enterprise. It was going to be called Pathfinder, Marty, or maybe there's another name they had for it, but I think Pathfinder was in the works. And of course, it became that was the vehicle we saw on top of the 747 Space Shuttle carrier. And this was a rollout, very famous there. But I put that in there to show how the Space Shuttle entered our pop culture, particularly at this time. And the legacy continues today with the X-37B, all right, the mini shuttle space plane that is orbiting the Earth right now. One of them, Boeing's got, or there's three of them, two of them that they've used. One's been up for over 2 years at one time and landed. So what are they doing there with this top secret space plane? Well, we can only guess, but we know that they do say they're testing materials for future space stations, and then the clandestine things they're doing. Space observers who watch these things once in a while tell you that, hey, it ejected a couple spheres and then they brought them back in. We do know from photographs of it going overhead that it does have a solar panel on there. Of course, how else could it make power for 2 years up there? And this trunk on the backside comes off on reentry. So here is a wonderful tale of coming into our museum. You're going to see pictures now that you've never seen before, I guarantee you. These are blueprints from McDonnell in St. Louis that were in a garbage can. And the neighbor saw all this stuff in a garbage can, including a Gemini training hand controller with wires on it that sold for $35,000. And I'll show you that one day. He went over to the neighbor and says, hey, you're throwing all this out? Yeah, Dad worked for McDonnell. We got to get rid of it. So, well, can I have it? Yep. And this was one of the big finds of the 7 years I've been here. All right. But here's all the documentation. Imagine this is a big, thick, and you see the others in the upper left-hand corner. These are big, thick printouts. Look at there. Chuck Jeffrey, our collection analyst, and I rolled these out, and we had to put tables together to put all of these blueprints out. Okay, one sheet of blueprints that really did stuff like that. And here we are opening up again as we imagine the thrill of not knowing exactly what you're looking at here. Okay, and as you unfold it, oh my gosh, you're looking closer and closer, and you are seeing history of concepts of the shuttle. So we're going to look it up close here. This says 1967. I'm showing you the regular blueprint things on there. And yeah, I see, Marty. I'm going to continue here. Thank you, Steve Jokins, for your input there. I'll share that here in a little bit, maybe. But he's given us details. Well, I'll just say it that Pathfinder I know was a mock-up out there, and Constitution was the name that they were going to name, and it got Enterprise got changed. So got my shuttles mixed up there. So we open this up and look at this. You're going, oh wow, see our blueprint stuff over here. So you're going like, we're going to see close-ups of these two things inside here. There's one of them, okay? And as you read the words that the blueprint people put in there, you got at the bottom, ablative coating on the portion of the lower surface, okay? You notice it doesn't have wheels. It's got skid plates for landing, all right? Windshield cover raised per visibility in orbit, jettison for landing, Marty. See that little thing, which we've never done in orbit. They thought they would need a shield like your visor in your car, basically, to flip down to see out the window because of the brightness of the sun. Well, nobody been up there to check it out. Look at the engine configuration stuff back over here. And look how they've got it is sectioned out A, B, C, D, E, F down the line, G and H even in architectural world there. So looking down on top of this was a 6-seater, okay, commander, 2 pilots behind him, 3 people in the seat there. This is a cutaway of the, actually this is a 9-seater because they're not showing the 3 people here on there. That's right. This is a 9-seater spacecraft. Aerodynamic control system, fuel, wing sweep actuator, because as you see, the wings were going to be swept back and forth, all right, depending on where it was in the atmosphere. And you see like a helicopter, the outline of those around there. We were just so fascinated, we being Chuck Jeffrey and myself, looking at these things. And again, just to show you that this is the real deal, this is a reproduction, is 1/3 the size they're projected. So then we ran across these. Look at that, how cool that is. Over on the left there and the right. Again, a different blueprint of the same space plane concept there. A little bit this is 5 people going up. Emergency landing on each side, left main skid. They weren't going to use wheels. They always wanted to use skid plates there. Gearboxes, tanks outlined there. And again, the profile of the thing. All right. Just structural environment talking about. Horizon sensors I see there. Again, there's the shield, the windshield for visibility above there. And look at the business end of the engine. Kind of looks like what we're seeing with the new vehicles coming on, a cluster of engines. All right, with all kinds of details around the side there. Just fascinating to me. But here's the piece de resistance that we found because of some of the things it says there. This was on a pinkish type of blueprint paper, really it was. And down here's the space plane, side view, and then the top view is looking at it from above. And here you've got emergency reentry and flight control station, okay? So this would apparently separate if it had to, and looks like an ablative shield was at the end of this. Now here's what I love, right here behind all this here, off-duty quarters, photo recon, satellite identification, intercept, and attack station. Attack station right there. And there is a weapons up in the upper left-hand corner, radar, but that is a weapon, some sort of a space gun. And with an astronaut there in this area right here above my head, okay, on this blueprint from 1967. Infrared seeker on the back there. So, though not a whole lot of detailed information there, Uh, but all you need to see is the word weapons there. And so, though these concepts never were realized, they were concepts that were in the queue in all the discussions back in there. And so, and here's the last one that's really cool to look at. Again, very similar, but this is a lifting body, is what they call it, instead of a space plane. And you've got a ditchable engine deal on the back there, and the close-ups of that. Again, they break them up into A, B, C, D. They show where electronics should be, nose landing skid, ablative material, apparently not under the whole thing, and then the engine that was jettisoned. And looking up above, you got 9 passengers on this one here, on there. Aerozine 50 14-foot diameter sphere. Okay. So it's interesting what they do, put details. There's a yaw control up there, type of thing on there. So that's it. Let's look back at the space planes that become the Space Shuttle, as we see 4 beautiful orbiters there in space there. And I hope that you all enjoyed that, including Carl Tresti Barkison of Iceland. Thank you, Carl, for watching today. Hope you become part of our Stay Curious family. And we got Sundog7 on there, a new member in our family. Thank you. Like he says, he hopes acid-free paper is on there. No, it wasn't. It was not acid-free paper, and I'm sure that is why all these images, I did try to increase the contrast and improve them a little bit, but some of them were hard to see. Thank you, Steve Jokums, for always fact-checking me and keeping everybody straight on the facts out there. And Dave Stange, appreciate you watching today. And Cliff Watson said that when he saw the reveal out at the Space Center of Atlantis, he cried. And I had tears in my eyes about a month ago. I hadn't seen it in about 6 months. And it's just so emotional to watch what you're going to see and feel. And then Tom Celentano said the same thing. The music gets to him. And when they say, and for the last time, the ship that has sailed time and time again, welcome home Atlantis. And then goosebumps go up on my arms like they are right now. So we hope Doug Forrest is doing well there in California. Tom Celentano, thanks again. Tommy Usiak, Carlton Bailey, Colm Buckley, Cliff Watson, Bill Whiting, Dave Stange, all of you folks out there, including I know Hazel Banks is probably watching, and we've also got many of you watch it. Don't comment all the time, but I know Hazel is there, and I'm rooting for your Buffalo Bills, Hazel. We will have a memorabilia show where I'll probably see Hazel at February 22nd at Beachside Hotel, and we hope to see some of you there personally. Or book a vacation for your family, and then you'll have a Space Geek thing to do that weekend on Saturday after coming to our museum here. So thank you for reminding me of that, Marty. And we're going to hit our events hard tomorrow, where we'll show you what we're doing this quarter. Something going on every month in January, February, and March, and have some fun on a Friday. So thanks, everyone, for watching today's episode. Please like us, share us, tell your friends to watch us. Thank you to you newcomers out there. There's over 800 episodes of Stay Curious on YouTube, and the other 400 that aren't there are on Facebook, as Marty and I are approaching 1,200 episodes of Stay Curious, all because we, like you, are passionate about space. Yes, Marty?
I think we exceeded 1,200 because we've been saying close to 1,200 for the last month.
Well, I have it up there on my wall there, so I haven't added it up yet, Marty, but we'll do that. But yes, sirree, we have done this a lot together, and we love it. And it has been a great outreach for the American Space Museum, your favorite nonprofit. And we're doing some things here that we're going to let you in on that maybe you can help us with later this month. So until tomorrow, when we do a big TGIF to what's up there in space. I'm Mark Marquette saying we can't wait to see you in our museum to bridge the space between us.